Hey guys, welcome to this week's podcast episode, and I've got a fantastic guest for you today, Chris Behnke. He's an entrepreneur, and he's got a fascinating bio. He's an author, he's an influencer, and I'm really happy to have him on the show to talk about his work and how he can benefit the audience. So, Chris, welcome.
Yeah, thank you. I'm super glad to be here. It's a pleasure to speak with you today. So thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, what's interesting is, you have a lot of interesting ideas and topics that we're going to delve into, and
Yeah.
briefly just talk about you, your business, how you got there, and how you can help the audience.
So I think at the high level, I've been a serial entrepreneur for 20 years. My wife and I, we've started or co-started 16 or I think it's 17 different businesses. Most of them haven't worked out. I think that's kind of the life of an entrepreneur. Some of them have moderate success, some of them okay. But I learned a lot of different things over that time. Several different verticals from health to fitness and marketing and psychology. And so one of the things that we really found to be powerful was about 15 years ago. We had a small consulting firm where we were helping businesses with their hiring and with team optimization, stuff like that. And that has just evolved into a really powerful suite of tools. And so we're really focused on that as one of our primary things right now. It's called the Human Nexus. And so it's been a fantastic journey, really.
Yeah, and we'll talk about, what the Nexus is, and what's interesting is kind of talking about because you talk about unlocking the core motivators and the power of the Nexus profile. What is Nexus,
Yeah.
and how does it drive what you do?
Yeah, we say this thing that most people feel like they're missing the life they were called to live because that's what we found to be true. And so, with the Nexus and the tools that we've developed, we actually give people a language and an understanding of who they are, which kind of unlocks the permission to be who they are, which allows them to thrive in every area of life. So, you see this in everything from parenting and marriage to business. We help a lot of businesses. So, like, for example, in the business context, a lot of people talk about the 80-20, right? 80-20 exists everywhere. Pareto's principle: 20% of the salespeople produce 80% of the results, 20% of your employees produce 80% of your headache. What we've found is the core for that lies almost totally in the reality of misunderstanding both ourselves and the people around us. So we've actually found that if you can begin to understand that, you can actually communicate in a different way with your employees, let's say for in a business case, and actually flip the 80-20. Or in like the easiest example is always sales because it's so easy to translate. So for example, it exists in pretty much every business we've ever worked with. 20% of the salespeople produce 80% of the sales. So most companies work on the 80%, get them training, get them, pour into them, get them mentors, help them. But what we do is we say, actually, the 20% that are succeeding, those guys are just wired. It's in their DNA to do amazing. So we actually help companies identify what is the unique secret sauce of those guys, bring in more like that, and that's how you can actually flip the 80-20. It's been absolutely amazing as we've kind of moved through and helped businesses from all over the world basically flip the 80-20 in their company just through unlocking this understanding about how people are wired and how they actually think and function. And that's what we talk about motivators is it's like the gasoline in your car. The type of fuel that it is, it could be electric, could be diesel, could be gas. If you put the wrong fuel in, the car isn't going to go. That's the way it is with motivators. So if you can learn how to communicate with people by putting the right gas in their car, so to speak, then you can unlock some amazing stuff. So that's at a super high level. That's what we do.
Interesting. And so kind of a follow-up is 20% of the 80%, those are the A plus. What do you do about the rest of the 80, the rest of the remaining 84% that are mediocre or not or substandard?
Yeah, super good question. So, like one of the most influential books in business is Jim Collins' Good to Great. In that book, he talks about getting the right people on the bus. And if you get the right people on the bus, it doesn't matter where the bus is going, you're going to be successful. And I think that that is an interesting principle. I think that we have seen that to be largely true, except if you have the right person on the bus, but they're in the wrong seat, it doesn't matter that they're on the bus. So, for example, if you have a company that designs software and you have somebody that is just wired, like they were born as an amazing software engineer, right? And then obviously they have to get training and develop their skill and so forth, but they're just amazing at it. It's just like, wow, this guy's incredible. But you make that person the CFO of the company because they're an incredible software developer, you're going to have a bad CFO. Like, it's just the reality of it. You see this, it's, the colloquial term for it is the Peter principle, where someone that's amazing just keeps getting promoted until they're mediocre. And then they stop getting promoted, and then that's where they stay. So what we do is we say, we're going to actually learn what makes the 20% amazing. And rather than promote them into a job they'll eventually suck at, what we're going to do is we're going to come in and we're going to identify with those. We're going to look for more people that are like that. And then if we work with the company across the whole organization, we'll create profiles for multiple roles. And in a lot of cases, you can move roles of people around and put them in a role that is designed like how they're wired, and then they will begin to thrive. We've had people that had no background, that had no college degree, become incredible software developers, some of the best software developers, just because we put them in a place where they were wired. You can train someone the software, you can train them how to write code, you can put them through a program, and in 6 months they can learn. If they're like wired to do that amazing, they'll thrive in that position. But what we see most of the time is people end up just kind of growing up in a company until they kind of are mediocre, and then eventually they become dissatisfied, and then they leave, and they have to start the whole process over again. So we work to end that. And that's what I mean by flipping the 80-20. Getting the right person on the bus, but getting them in the right seat is the real key.
Interesting. Yeah. It's a fascinating concept. There was another, I think it's another principle. It's where like a mediocre middle and exec and C, and then they keep promoting themselves within that. And so basically the leadership just gets really crappy. Kind of share a transformational story of someone who applied the principles of the NEXUS profile in their life and work when they work with you, and what
Yeah, a recent gentleman who went through one of our workshops, he's in his 50s, and he had kind of recognized that, he had spent the last 25 years kind of going down this path in a career and was experiencing some pretty significant burnout. But you kind of get trapped, right? You kind of get trapped going down this career. He went to one of our workshops, and in this workshop, it was actually a marriage workshop. But in the workshop, you're kind of learning about how you're wired, the people around you, how to communicate, and kind of understanding this concept of 80-20, right? So it's kind of like, how do I take a step back, forget where I've been, which you can't really do that, but just as an exercise, forget where I've been and say, based on the kind of the way that I am, what I love, what gets me excited every morning, where should I go? And I actually gave him the confidence to start a new construction business that is now thriving. That was only like, it was only like 5 months ago. It's now really thriving already because he just shifted. Now, that wasn't a massive 180-degree turn. He was already kind of in the industry, but down a different part of it. And so this gave him the kind of confidence in the way he was wired to actually step into kind of a new area. Another example that I've used a lot of times was about 10 years ago. We had a workshop where we were working with a small group of senior executives in Portland, and they were all in their late 50s, early 60s. They were all C-level guys. It was all men too, which is kind of unusual for one of our workshops, but it was a small group. There's only, I think, 10 or 12 people in the room. And what we found is that 4 of these gentlemen actually were what we call influencer first. So in our assessment, there's 4 types: influencer, driver, solutionary, stabilizer. Those blends of those make up 6 additional blends. So there's really 10 data points that you're working with. And 4 of these guys were influencers first, which means that they're motivated first by relational unity. Now, all 4 of these guys were in their early 60s, very successful in their careers. And throughout the workshop, all 4 of them, it was kind of crazy because they all kind of were on the same path, discovered that they weren't actually operating out of the influencer part of who they were. Because culturally, if this was 10 years ago too, so they're in their 70s now, that generation of senior executives kind of grew up in the business world of, listen, I'm the leader. You're going to do what I say. You'll be glad you have the job, and it's my way, and there's no highway, and this is how it's going to be. And it was this kind of really strong kind of leadership, which was pretty appropriate 30 years ago. Millennials and Gen Z don't respond super well to it. But what happened in the workshop was they discovered that they were kind of ignoring this part of who they were that was actually the primary part. And they kind of each had their own transformation in that workshop because they realized, wow, if I shouldn't be afraid of who I am, how I'm wired, the way that I operate. That's actually, if I actually embrace that, not like lower my standards, but embrace all of who I am, I can actually bring my very best version of myself to my organization. And they all experienced a pretty significant shift in the culture because they were hiring a lot of younger people that were not responding super well to the really harsh kind of leadership like Gen X people did. And they experienced some pretty significant breakthroughs. Kind of difficult to quantify exactly what those are, but just culturally, they would report back, wow, like this is affecting our bottom line. This is affecting our culture. It's really affecting turnover. They're having a lot of young people leaving a lot, which is a significant problem just in today's culture, is that younger people, the tenure is really short. But those are 2 pretty significant, kind of exciting things to watch unfold. But yeah.
Yeah, it's really interesting because I just had another podcast guest talk about cultural divide within the organization and with so many options and socials and just how the Gen Z behave in their values. Yeah. Next thing is kind of like this overarching, and then you've built you're an entrepreneur, so and you've got a great relationship, marriage, and you're living on purpose and helping people start to incorporate these values into their lives and into their relationships.
Yeah. So I think that I think at the end of the day, even the most introverted, reclusive kind of person has to work with other people. And I think just in society, if just as humankind, if we're going to continue to improve and make life better for everyone, we have to learn how to communicate better. It serves the people around us, but it also serves us. So it's very helpful. There's the saying, a rising tide lifts all boats. And if you think of that from a communication standpoint, and you say, if we can create language that fits the people around us, it actually honors them and actually helps unlock their potential as well. So here's 2 great examples. First one is that if I want to do something really nice for my wife, like let's say we're going to celebrate anniversary or something, and there's this concept out there called the golden rule, which is do unto others as you would have them do unto you. So I want to give her a really nice dinner. So I love sushi. So I would go find the best sushi restaurant in our town, and I'd meet with this chef, and I'd plan a special thing. They'd fly in a special kind of fish, and they'd prepare it, tableside, and it would be amazing, except she doesn't like sushi. So I like sushi. So if I treat her the way I want to be treated, it's actually dishonoring to her. And it's kind of obvious, right? But if I go around communicating the way I like to be communicated to, kind of ignoring the people around me, if they're just like me, it kind of works okay. But if they're not, it doesn't. So what that does is it creates these clusters, these silos of people that are really similar. So that seems kind of okay, except for everyone knows, like, if you're really going to go somewhere in business, you have to have a diverse group of people coming together, kind of working against each other, sometimes frustrating each other to get to the very best solution, best product, best company. But if they do this and they can't do it well, then they don't actually develop a better product. They just develop animosity and kind of resentment and then eventually burn out and leave. So if we can figure out how to honor people, it unlocks everything. Here's the last super simple example. Let's say I have two people. One's named Mary. Let's say Mary is a high influencer. That's part of our assessment. And let's say Bob. Let's say Bob is a high driver. That's part of our assessment. Influencers are motivated by relational unity and vision. Drivers, which is what Bob is, are motivated by forward progress. And they get that through determination. So let's say I have a task for both of those. Let's say I need them to do research on insurance before we start a new project in our company. Normal way to ask would be, hey, Mary, hey, Bob, could I get you to do some research on this? I know you don't like that kind of thing, but it's really important. And they don't want to do it. Neither one of them likes doing research on insurance. But if I change my language to Mary, who's motivated by relational unity, and I say, Mary, I know I need you to do some research on some insurance. I know that's the kind of thing you don't really like. But here's the thing, Mary. It's super important to everybody on the team that we get the right insurance in place now so there's no hiccups later, so that the whole project can thrive. Because Mary, this project is super important to the vision of the whole company. And it's kind of a frustrating thing to have to do this research, but you don't want to end up like before, where we actually had to let part of our team go because the last project failed because we had the wrong policy and the state came in and stopped the project. Mary is now hearing, oh, I care about the team. I care about unity. I care about everyone thriving. I don't want anyone to get let go. And I want the vision of the company to succeed. So it's the same task, honoring what Mary cares about. But if you go to Bob and say that Bob's the driver, he's motivated by progress. He doesn't care about the team. He does. This is different, right? But if you go to Bob and say, hey, Bob, I know I need to do this insurance research, and I don't like that kind of thing, but we need the right policy in place before we start this progress, because Bob, we don't want anything to stop this project from moving forward. And you remember last quarter when the state came in and stopped everything because we didn't have the right policy. So let's get this policy in place right now so that this project can move forward, Bob, because you remember this project is a prerequisite for the big project we're trying to get with the state next year. So can you do the research on this insurance to make sure nothing stops the project from moving forward? Now, I didn't talk about the team at all. Bob is like, oh yeah, I hate insurance. I hate doing researching, but I hate even more project stopping. So I'm going to go get the insurance. So you're really just, it's not manipulative. You're really just saying, what does Bob care about? Let me talk to Bob about that. What does Mary care about? Let me talk to Mary about that. And you're changing your communication to honor the people and who they are, how they're wired. When you start doing this in every area of your company, this is where you literally see, like, we actually have seen with companies actually flipping the 80-20 around in all of these different departments. It's really super, it's pretty fun actually, but it's super profound.
Yeah, really fascinating discussion. And I know a lot of the audience is really interested in hearing, just culture. And how can people contact you, follow your socials? You got quite a significant Instagram following, Twitter as well, and work with you.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you wanna follow kind of what's going on, I do have Twitter. It's Chris_Behnke. I do have Instagram. It's at Chris Behnke. My Instagram account, I'm kind of evolving. I was a hobbyist photographer, so I got a lot of my followers from my photography pictures. But you can follow me in both of those places. We're posting a lot of content. But if you want to learn more about this specific tool, you can go to thehumannexus.com. Thehumannexus.com. Nexus is NEXUS.com. And actually, you can take the NEXUS profile for free there. We recently in December decided to make the assessment free. You can upgrade and get a more advanced report. It's the same assessment, but you can take the assessment for free. And there's contact information on there as well. We work with individuals. We do custom workshops. We're working with a company right now. It's super cool. I'm pretty excited about. We haven't announced it yet, so I guess I can kind of talk about it now. But this company sends teams in. It's called Crisis Responses International. They send teams in after disasters, so tornadoes or massive floods or earthquakes. And we're actually creating a profile for every single one of their responders. These responders are volunteers. They don't know each other. So let's say a massive earthquake happens. They'll put together a leader that's been trained and like 10 or 15 volunteers that have a little bit of training, but none of them know each other. So they're all taking the profile. We're giving training around how to interact with these people in a crisis situation. So the leader now gets a dossier on the flight over to where the earthquake is, and it's like kind of like Mission Impossible. Like, here's your team, here's your 12 people, here's Mary and Bob, and Mary's an influencer, and Bob's a driver, and kind of the strengths and weaknesses of them. So they hit the ground in this kind of crazy environment, knowing exactly how to honor, communicate, who's going to be good at what, who to put in charge of what, and so forth. So it's kind of amazing. So if people want to learn more about the Human Nexus, they can go there, take the Nexus for free. You can hit the contact button there, reach out to us, and either myself or someone from my team would be love to talk to you guys about what projects you've got coming up, how to help with hiring or team communication, things like this.
Yeah, I love that. Let's thank Chris for coming on, and he's got 36,000 followers on Twitter, and be sure to give his socials a like and follow. With that, thanks so much for coming on.
Yeah, thank you. Sounds awesome. Thank you so much.